and the Merrill Lynch mob and the J.P. Morgan Chase criminals. I mean, you read the paper what happened with this so-called London whale thing and how they cooked all the books with J.P. Morgan Chase. Any of us, if we did it, they'd have us locked up. You don't see any heads roll, and the people losing their homes. I have friends in Greece. I have friends in Spain and in Italy. I have people in Portugal. They keep telling me with the suffering. Look who's running the central bank in Europe. Mario Draghi. Who is Mario Draghi? He was a former vice chairman of the Goldman Sachs European division. Who's the guy that's taking over now at the Bank of England? Mark Carney. Who is he with? Goldman Sachs. Who was the guy that started this whole too big to fail scam going? Henry Paulson, former Treasury Secretary under George Bush. Where was he before he came here? The chairman of Goldman Sachs. Who was the guy that deregulated Glass-Steagall, got it into motion under Clinton? Could have been Robert Rubin, could it? No, he was with Goldman Sachs too, and the chairman? Yeah. Can anybody put this together? It's a banking takeover worldwide. That's all this is.
What if the bank's customers took their money out?
I believe it'll straighten the system out.
If they hold only a small percentage of real money, would taking your money out be bad for them?
Oh, yeah. It'll bring down these too big to fail so we can get business going again. So local banks could start building again. So what do they have? Over 80% of the action. 7 banks? Who made this stuff up?
Now the US dollar carries the Federal Reserve stamp on it. But before, it was silver certified and printed by the United States of America. Modern banking can be demonstrated by the Cyprus effect, where bankers force the government to openly rob their people directly from their bank accounts. Even Jesus, known for peace, chased the money changers from the temple, the bankers of his time.
Pretty much everything you predicted in the last 30 years is now unfolding. From all my research, and even what the establishment's saying and the way they're behaving, it's all coming to a head. Now it's 2 billion rounds of bullets and hollow points that are illegal. We've got a new report out where Homeland Security is funding domestic drones, and I'm not making this up, to, quote, track gun purchases. That just broke at Infowars.com. We see military drills expanding everywhere. We see the new Justice Department memo saying, hey, let's just ban guns and confiscate them. It's like I've woken up in an Orwellian nightmare. And we've got this normalcy bias, this mass Stockholm syndrome, where even mainline conservatives, I had Ted Nugent on yesterday, he said, look, the green light's been given on Benghazi, the green light's been given on all this other tyranny, Fast and Furious, nobody got in trouble. And so I think we've reached that point where the tyrants figure out that if they can take us an inch, why not take us a million miles?
No, and I've been getting away with it, but don't you think this has started a while back and it's just accelerating? And if you go back to what happened at Waco, if you go back to what happened at Ruby Ridge, I mean, if they can get away with it, they do it. And nobody ever got punished for those mistakes that were made, and now nobody gets punished at all. Matter of fact, the Congress goes along with it. The Congress doesn't really resist and put restraints on the president when it comes to kill lists and the use of drones and assassinations, and the funding continues. So it's a very dangerous time that we live in.
The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. To those new states whom we welcome to the ranks of the free, we pledge our word that one form of colonial control shall not have passed away merely to be replaced by a far more iron tyranny. We shall not always expect to find them supporting our view, but we shall always hope to find them strongly supporting their own freedom, and to remember that in the past, those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence. Trust your eyes, the facts, and the laws of physics. Architects, engineers, and experts in physics and explosives have said, Building 7 was imploded in a controlled demolition. Evidence of that and much more was ignored in the government investigation.
Check out every fact that we point out, because it's extremely important that we know the whole truth about this event. After all, it served as the pretext for the invasion of 2 countries, in which already over 1 million people have perished. Also as the pretext for the loss of many of our own cherished liberties here at home in the United States through recent legislation such as the Patriot Act, the Military Commissions Act, and the forthcoming Senate Bill 1959, the Violent Radicalization and Homegrown Terrorism Act, in which many of us can be named a terrorist and have no right to an attorney or trial by jury. Another 9/11 could happen again if we don't dedicate ourselves to finding out exactly what happened and why, and to bringing those actually responsible to justice. NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, claims they found no evidence for explosive demolition at the Twin Towers. Later, they admit that they never looked for it. How can you find what you are not looking for? Well, architects, engineers, scientists, and many others looked for it, and it was not hard to find.
I don't want to be involved in conspiracy theories. There are lots of them. They can go on. We can speculate on that forever. What we really need to know is how those buildings came down.
World Trade Center 7 collapsed because of fires fueled by office furnishings. It did not collapse from explosives or from fuel oil fires.
To undermine scientific integrity is to undermine our democracy.
This is what NIST has done, denied and ignored crucial evidence.
The American people absolutely need the truth of 9/11.
We also need to know what happened with the $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon, a fact that was announced by Rumsfeld himself on September 10th, only to be forgotten about the next day on September 11th. Where is that money? Aurora Theater, Sandy Hook shootings, and the Boston bombings.
Whoa! Something just blew up at Run!
And that's what the people of the United States have done. They've boarded the train from Auschwitz. It just left from the Boston terminal. Everybody cheering the Gestapo taking over the country. How wonderful. We've lost all our rights. The founding fathers must be turning in their graves. And this also happened on the day that Paul Revere, the Battle of Lexington and Concord, and our rights are stripped in front of us, and people allow the Gestapo to do it, and they all cheer. It's a disgrace.
Is this a pattern? A coincidence? When the government gets into too much trouble, a major event takes place. These are the forgotten news stories that take place during a terror media frenzy. When the Boston bombing was being followed around the world, a bipartisan committee made up of top military, national security, legal public service, law enforcement, foreign policy, religious, and medical professionals was released on detainee treatment following 9/11. This task force of the Constitution Project concluded in their 602-page report that the U.S. government and its highest officials engaged indisputably in torture and other forms of inhumane, cruel, and degrading treatment of its detainees. Accordingly, Clinton, George W. Bush, and Obama and many of their top officials are due in court for crimes against humanity. Meanwhile, it is business as usual. The CISPA bill passes in the House, another milestone on the road to curbing free speech. Martial law creeping ever closer.
Many people respond to these truths in a very deep way. Some have a visceral reaction like they've been punched in the stomach.
And just broke down. I understand now that what was happening was my worldview about my government being in some way my protector, almost like a parent, had been dashed, and it was like being cast out into the wilderness.
Denial, which is probably the most primitive psychological defense, is the one most likely to kick in when our beliefs are challenged.
And eventually, our mind shuts off. Just like when a computer is overloaded, our minds get overloaded. We can't handle it anymore, and we shut down.
And what some of us will tend to do is deny the evidence that's coming our way and stick to the original story, the official story, and to try to regain our equilibrium in that way. Another thing we can do is decide to look at the conflicting evidence and be sincere and be open-minded and look at both sides of the issue and then make up our own mind about what reality is.
To begin to accept the possibility that the government was involved is like opening Pandora's box.
Whenever we say, I refuse to believe, we can be sure that the evidence that's coming our way is not bearable and that it's conflicting with our worldview much too much. As I thought about all of these responses, I realized that what is common to every one of them is the emotion of fear.
I mean, there are evil people who have evil motives and they want to do exactly what's happening. There are others, though, who are intellectually totally bankrupt.
Obama said he was going to give poor people free stuff.
The people are naive enough to believe that. So you put all that together and you end up with this calamity because they do not deal with the world as we would like to deal with it, and that is concentrating on individuals who have a right to their own life, have a right to keep the fruits of their labor, have property rights and contract rights and sound money, and get the government out of our way. So they don't work on that. They work on the opposite. But,
sure, but Dr. Paul, here's my question.
Trying to figure out exactly their scheme and their plan and who did what when has to be counteracted by us getting out in front and saying there is a better way, and that way is something that we had a taste of in this country, and we're losing it. We need to wake up the American people that the answers are there for us. We just want to look, and I think in many ways that is happening. A lot more people are waking up, but it's going to be a terribly tough struggle.
We find a president giving away billions of dollars in foreign aid, which he is not entitled to do. I have searched the congressional records, the congressional globes, the annals of Congress, to find out if there is an empowerment for the federal government, our Congress, to dish out billions of dollars every year like a Santa Claus to foreign nations, and I could not find it anywhere. And where the Constitution is silent on a provision, it means it is a prohibition of that provision. What I did find was that when President Monroe was trying to get us involved in Latin America, he tried to get some money sent down there, and the Congress stood on its hind legs and said, this is a matter that's out of your purview. This is a matter for the Congress, and we deny you foreign aid because it's not constitutional.